Hi everyone, Mo here, and I'm going to share with you some fun things you can do with these brand new mixed media transfers from Faber-Castell Design Memory Craft. There are four designs. There's the feathers, the flowers, the tropical, and there are some words as well. I started crafting around the time when scrapbooking was all the rage. And there used to be a product called rub-ons. And if you have ever tried using them, well, I never had much success with them because they had to be the very last element to go on a page. I couldn't add anything on top of it. And sometimes they lifted off, they didn't transfer very neatly. And it was just not a very satisfactory product, and I felt I was always at a risk that I might ruin my project if I add this. So I was a little skeptic when I saw the mixed media transfers, and I had to kind of put it through the test to see if they really are better. So some of the things that I noticed was that with the scrapbooking rub-ons, they used to have a film over the entire design, but which means it kind of protected the design, and which also meant that it limited you to what you can and cannot do on top of it. I could never do anything on top of it because nothing would stick because of that film. But these are more like outlines. So think about it. If you are afraid to draw and you just shy away that no, I couldn't draw, this is something you can just like add the design and color it in. It's like you're transferring the outline, almost like a stamp in some way, but better than a stamp, because with a stamp, unless you are extremely careful with the kind of ink that you're using and you are actually letting it completely dry, there is the risk of that ink smearing when you add wet medium on top. So this doesn't have that problem. Let me show you. So like I said, there are four designs, and each pack comes with two sheets of the same design. And here's the tropical one. I am going to cut out the flamingo. It's my favorite. Just separating this design from the rest of the designs, because it's a little trickier if you leave it on the sheet and then you're trying to transfer. You might be transferring more design elements than you want to. And another thing that I found was a problem with scrapbooking rub-ons. If I was working with textured cardstock, the transfer was it was not transferring completely because it was not making full contact with the surface. But this is watercolor paper, and I'm just going to peel the backing off. I'm going to lay it down where I want. And there is a very important tool that helps you do the transfer. It's just a craft stick. And just push with the stick till your entire design is transferred. Now you will notice that once the design is transferred, that area becomes gray, which is a easy way to know whether or not your design has transferred completely. And I'm rubbing hard because I'm working on watercolor paper, which is a textured surface. It's a cold press watercolor paper. And a good rule of thumb is to not yank the top cover off, because you really want to see that the design has transferred. So what I do is I lift a little corner and carefully keep pulling it gently. And if there's any area that hasn't transferred, I just put the protective layer back on before I remove it. and work on those specific areas. And as you can see, this is a pretty intricate design. So take your time to make the transfer complete. It's hard to show on camera, but once I start coloring, you will see that what it transferred is just the outline. So it's almost like drawing on a page and then coloring it in. So let me color it so you can see. I'm using gelatos. You could use watercolor pencils. Well, actually, I'll show you. I have used Stampers' Big Brush Pens, watercolor pencils, and of course gelatos. I'm not even trying to stay within lines. You could. This is just not my goal with this project. Just lightly adding color. As you can see that the water does not hurt the rub-on at all. There's no smearing, there's no lifting because of adding something weight. See, if I want to add some details, I'm going to use some watercolor pencils for that. The surface is already wet, so I'm not going to have to add water to the watercolor pencil marks. But as you can see, if I want to choose smaller areas or something, I could do that with a watercolor pencil. And you can, of course, add color within the lines. You can see these legs are quite thin, and yet I can add color inside because that film is just over those design outlines. I'm gonna let this dry. So taking a heat tool, there's no need to heat set the design or anything, but because for the sake of time, you want to work faster, you can use a heat tool to dry it. It's not going to melt the transfer. Now that the watercolor layer is dry, I have pulled out some pit pens, some Stampers' Big Brush Pen and brush pen, as well as a writing pen. And I'm going to use these to add some color layers and detail. The pit pen, the Stampers' Big Brush Pen, the India ink pens, they are all gliding on top of it, and there's no difficulty using them with the rub-ons, or the mixed media transfers to be correct. I just want to show you a variety of pens, all from Design Memory Craft, and how beautifully they work with the mixed media transfers. A question that comes up sometimes is, I worked on a blank surface and I added the rub-on. So is it necessary to do the transfer first and then add the color? Let's find out if this surface was watercolored, as you saw. Let's see if something can be applied on top. So this is the word set. Again, 2 sheets of the same design in each pack. And there are lots of beautiful sayings here. I think I'm going to take Explore and Discover and do what I did before, cut it out Yeah, that surface is now dry. Let's see. You just have to decide where this should go. I'm not sure. Let's put it here. And yes, you can transfer it on a surface. Well, I wouldn't recommend trying to transfer something on a surface that's wet, because then the water's going to fight the transfer process. But once it's done, looks like there's no problem. And if I want to color inside those lines, I could. I'm taking one of the writing pens. We could actually do two colors. Let's take a brush pen and do a subtle ombre effect. So now this is cut to 4 inches by 6 inches. It's like a postcard size. You could do a postcard template in the back and send it out. You could attach this to the front of a card. Or you could just simply use it as a note card. So this product, it just gives you the freedom to add designs without having to draw. And because it has the backing, you could, when we all happen to be in those spots in a project where we know it needs something, but we don't know exactly what. Yeah, you could stamp, you could do many things. But if you stamp and you don't like it, you can't take it off. You would have to go through the process of probably adding gesso and whatnot. You could just cut this piece, and because it's pretty transparent, you could move it around to see if it would work in that project. And if it does, you add it. If it doesn't, you don't. So that it gives you that visual freedom to try it before you add it. So I love that. And that didn't even take long time. I mean, that was super quick, and I am really enjoying this product a lot, and I hope you will too. Thank you so much for watching.